Hey folks, welcome back to Real Estate Investing Unmasked. Let me tell you about help. This guy that was supposed to do my plumbing for $2,500 for the whole house, right? He does the plumbing that's necessary for getting the toilet and getting the bathroom and the water into the house. He did that. But this same guy, once we had the roof structure on, where we were going to re-roof everything, before I used these other guys that I paid like 16 grand to finish everything that he was working on, he had given me an estimate to finish the roof for 5 grand. He said 5,000 bucks, I get all the shingles and everything on there. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a great deal. Up until this point, I have never paid any contractor before they did the job, ever. But this guy had done 3 or 4 jobs for me, and I thought, you know what? He's going to have to buy the material. I'm going to go ahead and pay him up front so he can go ahead and get onto this. And so I did. I paid him all 5 grand up front. And I will tell you right now, that is a very bad idea. Do not ever, ever, ever pay a contractor up front the whole shebang. If you do that, you're giving the money away, because now there's no incentive for that contractor to come out to your house and do the work. You know what happened? He ended up going down to Mexico and drove on little desert buggies for months and months. And then he said, oh, I'm sick. And then my contractor workers are sick. And everybody I know is sick. And then my truck was stolen, and this was done, and that was done. In reality, what happened was I never saw him again. Ever, ever, ever. I have never heard from him again. I've never seen him. And had he done his work, I probably would not have lost my oak floor. My solid oak floor that was beautiful. It would have sanded down nicely. It was about 1 inch thick, and it was solid oak. It was a wonderful looking floor. And it's just too bad. You know, that was on me, that I did something stupid, and that was that I paid my contractor up front. So I'm telling you now, when you get a contractor, do not pay your contractors up front for the whole shebang. Now, it makes sense. For instance, I had a contractor that did my floor for the house, did the whole tile for the whole floor, and it was, I'm gonna pay 6 grand was what I was given as the bid, and I gave them, I believe, $2,500 up front for the tile. And this is somebody who had already done some other work for me also. So I did have some idea that they were going to be able to do a decent job. It was from a recommendation of somebody else who had done an amazing job for me. And that turned out great. That turned out phenomenally. Before I did that, I actually got to know the guy. There was this other guy that was doing the plumbing and then took off with my money. I never really got to know him. I did meet him a couple times, but I didn't get to know him as a person, and didn't know that he was a sham, pretty much. He had done the plumbing, he had done the foundation, he had got those things to be done where I passed inspection, so I thought I could trust. I thought I could trust him. And honestly, when it comes to construction, you do have to trust your contractors to a certain degree. There is an element that you have to trust them. And unfortunately, that's still one of those areas where you still get screwed over these days, where people will still go out there, they could be licensed or not licensed, and them not do the work for you. So you really have to have the information on your people. Go with people with solid reviews or solid referrals. And in this case, it was kind of shysty. So unfortunately, I got screwed on that one. So I passed the inspection on the roof, and I was ecstatic because now I could tell code enforcement to leave me alone. Well, it wasn't that easy. Now I needed to stucco the outside of the house. I needed to install new windows. Now at this time, I got my buddy from Nick's Fix It that comes over to my house, and now he's starting to help. He tore out the shower. It took him a couple days to take out the shower with 2 layers of 6-inch thick concrete and a lead pan. It took him a couple days to knock all that out. So we got that out. We have the wood up, holding up the ceiling for between the master bedroom and the dining room. And so now we have the addition that's open to the outside air. And now I get a new friend in my house. I got a little dog. It wasn't a dog I asked for, but it was a dog that found my house. And when they did the extension, when they moved, took out the foundation to bring it forward, the little patio area where the front door is, when they took that out, it actually exposed some area for a space for critters, in this case the dog, to actually get inside my house. Oh, that reminds me of a story. The back of my house in the laundry room, this door I had barred up, and somebody kept knocking in my back door. I did everything I could. I put a big solid bar back there, and somehow they found out some way. They ended up starting to hit the back wall so hard that even the stud that the thing was attached to was broken, and they got into the house. There was nothing to steal here. We were knocking down the walls. There was no copper. There was no electricity to speak of, and they never took anything. So I don't know what they were doing. They weren't staying here. I really don't know what they're doing. This all happened after my buddy left the house. And that was one of the nice things about having somebody live here while they're fixing it up, is it prevented people from getting inside the house. Now this area is known as an area where you have people that do drugs walk around. It is not the best area. There is a separation between me and the main drug area. We have a cemetery that separates us from the worst area of the city, but this is not the best area. This area does have druggies. They have all kinds of people walking around that probably need some other place to live. Anyway, so people would break into my house, and every time I'd have to get somebody else to come out and put up a stronger door, put up a stronger barrier, and it wasn't until I got the house stuccoed that stopped. And for some reason, once the house was stuccoed and we had brand new doors and brand new security doors, I didn't have to worry anymore about people breaking into the house. Now I did worry about it, but it never happened again after that. Before we could put the stucco on, we had to get the windows in. Now I found this great place. I believe it was called Visalia Glass Company. So I had we opened up the window openings, the openings for the windows in the master and the kids' bedroom. We actually walled up where one of the walls had a window facing the neighbor, and I thought, I don't want my kids in a room where there's a window facing the neighbor. I saw no point in that. So I took that out and I said, no, we're going to put a window facing the street. And we made it a large window. We had to make large windows that would fit the requirement for people to be able to get out in the fire. And we wanted windows that go side to side, so we actually had to be bigger windows than if we'd have gone up and down. But in either case, we had to open up the wall larger. So Nick from Nick's Fix It came out and opened up the wall. Would put in 2x6s because the brick is 6 inches wide, 2x6s in place, and we framed it all out, and then we got the windows in. Now there are two different prices when you get windows. There's new construction price, and there is the price for homes that are being retrofitted. And I don't remember which one is cheaper. I think new construction is cheaper. So there are two prices, and if you have the chance to have windows installed and you can do it for the new construction price, do that. You'll get a better deal. When they installed the windows, they also had to put up flashing, or they had to put up paper so that when the water drains, behind the stucco or whatever, that doesn't drain into the house. So I had all of that up, but I didn't have anything else. So it was wide open for people to go in and out for a little while. I didn't tear down the wall until the windows were in. The brick wall in the front, I didn't tear that down until the windows were in place. And that was kind of scary, actually, was knocking down the walls, and I had windows right behind me. I had to hit it in a way that I knew that the brick would go inward instead of outward, because I didn't want to smack the windows. The other thing is, now I got all these windows, which means people can see inside the house. So I had to take this black plastic that we had from when my buddy was living here. He put insulation in the walls and put black plastic up against the insulation so he wouldn't be breathing insulation. So we tore that black plastic down because he moved out. And we use those. We use those to cover up the windows, and so it'd make it dark, but it fulfilled its purpose. The idea was also that it would protect the windows at least somewhat if there was anything that went flying. Maybe at least stop it a little bit, kind of like the tarps they use at gun ranges. Maybe stop the bullet. I don't know, slow it down. Anyway, I had a fun time tearing down the wall. I had a great time. Matter of fact, my buddy who was living here at the house, when he was knocking down the wall, he'd tell me, he says, I just visualized my ex-wife's face every time I hit the wall. And so he worked for hours and hours knocking down the wall, and it was great therapy for him. I didn't have that problem, but it was a great workout. It was a whole lot of fun taking the sledgehammer and knocking down the wall. And to find the Indian head penny from 1902 underneath the threshold of the front door was pretty cool. All right, so now at this point, I've got the windows in, I've got the framing in, I've got the framing for the windows on the side done, and now it's time to get the stucco. So I contacted probably like 6 or 7 different people to get stucco, and nobody wanted to return. It was, nobody wanted to return a phone call. And I didn't quite understand it, but I finally got somebody who came out and said, you know what, I'll do the whole thing. I think it was for $7,000 or $7,500. So he did the wrap around the house, and he did the chicken wire around the house, and I think that was like $3,000. I want to say it was $3,000. And this was enough to really button up the house and keep people from getting in the house. Well, at this point, I've run out of money. I've run out of every dollar that I had, except for maybe like $1,000 or $2,000. And I knew that if I got a loan, I would need to have some money to show them I had money in the bank to make payments. So I contacted this group called California Funding, and the guy's phenomenal. He was looking for a loan that he could get me, and here's the problem. So for the most part, it's really hard to get a loan that's less than $50,000. Most lenders do not want to lend less than $50,000 on a house, especially on a house that's being fixed up. So I knew that I had to get a hard money loan. And when it comes to hard money, they want to know that the house is worth a lot more than what they're giving you. Typically, a hard money lender will want to lend to you no more than 60 to 70% of the value of the home, unless they know they're in a very high appreciating market. And in that case, they might go up to 90%, depending on which hard money lender you talk to. Now, I knew hard money lenders down in Southern California, but none of them wanted to lend in Central California. So Mark Navarro from California Funding in Fresno, he's a good Christian man, and he said, yeah, I can do it, but we're going to have to work on how we're going to be able to do it. Because with the purchase price at $45,000, they really didn't want to lend me more than $45,000, because that essentially was more than what I bought the place for. Well, what I ended up doing was I got an appraisal. This is now about July of 2018. And in July, July of 2018, I got the loan, and I got a loan for $45,000. $5,000 of that immediately went to fees. So I lost $5,000 right off the top. That's more than 10% just for fees and getting the appraisal. Had to pay for insurance now on the house because I didn't have insurance on the house while I was fixing it up, construction insurance. It's called COC insurance, Course of Construction insurance. And a lot of companies will not give you insurance on fixing up a house when you're midstream. They want it when you're within the first 10% of fixing up the place, or when you're within the last 10% of fixing up the place. So they really don't want to insure you. I was already halfway into the construction, and nobody, and I mean nobody, even the people that I had insurance with on previous projects in the past, wanted nothing to do with it. So I went through Mark from California Funding, gave me a source to go with, and happened to be somebody that was able to work with me, and we got insured. So once we got insured, we got an appraisal. The appraisal on the property came back, and they said, I don't know how I can appraise this property because it's under construction. I have a certificate in real estate appraisal. One of the things you talk about when you get your certificate, when you study real estate appraisal, is how to do a pro forma appraisal. It's also how to do an appraisal on something that's being fixed up. There's a lot of ways you can do, a lot of things you can do to find what the value of a property is. And so this appraiser, we had to contact him back again. We contacted him and we said, okay, here's the situation. We got this house. Yes, we need to fix it up, but we want you to tell us the value after it's been repaired. They're like, oh, well, what are you going to do to the property? So I had to give them a list of all the things I was going to do to the property. I also had to make a list of how much it was going to cost me to do each thing. So I had a list of materials. I went and searched online at Lowe's.com. I looked at HomeDepot.com. And so when it said, okay, how much drywall are you going to use? I said, okay, well, a sheet of drywall is this much. It covers this many square feet. I had to do the math. And so I'll show you my list. I'll show you my Excel spreadsheet of all the things that I had estimated on what it would cost for me to buy the material, fix it up. I send that off to Mark. I get the hard money loan, and the appraisal. The appraisal came back and said it was worth $157,000 after repair value. That was enough for my hard money lender to say, yeah, I'll give you 45 grand, because that's 33% essentially. That's less than 33%, 1/3 of the value once it's finished. And the numbers they came back with looked legit as far as what it would cost to finish up the place. So I got 45 grand. So I've lost $5,000 in fees, And now I've lost another $5,000–6,000 off the top of that. So I'm sitting at about 35, 36 grand in this account to finish up the house. This is crazy. It really is crazy. But that's what investors have to do, right? You have to be able to make things work. The other thing is I expected all the money up front. I didn't get all the money up front. I got the money as draws. So I had to send off to California Funding and say, okay, I need the draw for stucco. I need the money for stucco, and I need the money for electrical, and I need the money for HVAC. And so they'd send me the money for those things that I had delineated in my spreadsheet. And I had a little place in there for overage for the just in case. I think we did 20% of what I had figured out as a just in case fund. The idea was that I was going to fix everything up myself. Well, at this time, I had hired Nick from Nick's Fix It, and I'd found other companies also to help me along the way. So we got the stucco on. I believe it was Steve Sorina's plastering company. Steve Sorina from Steve Sorina's plastering company, or Steve Sorina's stucco. I'm not exactly sure on that, but he did a great job on the house. My wife picked a color.
All right, folks, we're getting ready for stucco. We're almost done. As you can see, we've got the lath all up. It's ready to go. And here pretty soon, I'm gonna have the guy come out and put on stucco on both sides of it. We haven't figured out which colors we're gonna get yet. That's up to my wife. That's how I do things.
We're gonna go more of a brown, but my wife picked out a color that was more of a blue, and I'm gonna show you what that looks like. It actually turned out pretty well for the neighborhood. At first, I wasn't sold on the color. And I'd have to say the reason why is because the trim had not been painted yet. It was still like a gray. And we wanted to have something that had good contrast. And so we ended up later on, we went with Noe's painting company of Tulare. And he did a phenomenal job. If I ever go and get anyone to paint anything ever again for me, I'm going to choose Noe's painting. He's out of Tulare, and he is phenomenal. Just a stellar guy. He's a top-notch guy as a person, but he's a top-notch person as at his craft. He's a craftsman when it came to painting stuff.